This week on the WriterCon podcast,
it would be to write a crappy first draft. Just kick it out, get it done.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Lara Bernhardt, award-winning author of the Wantland Files book series.
Thank you, Jesse Ulrich. And hey there, writers. Thanks for joining us. As this episode is released, we're only a few weeks away from the WriterCon Reteat, which this year is at the Canebrake Luxury Resort that's not far from Tulsa. That's July 17 through 21, I believe. Lara, excited yet?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. I'm always excited when I have the opportunity to connect with and work with authors. Hopefully we'll get some new ones too, but I hope we have some familiar faces coming as well. I love getting to work with other writers.
Yes, me too. Jesse, it's not going to feel right if we have some kind of WriterCon event and you're not there.
It's true.
Do you think, could you and Michelle, you come back? We could do a live recording of something. I don't know.
I think actually I am running a leadership institute for teens during this retreat. No. So yes, I know I have to shape the minds of our youth. But otherwise, I would happily be in a place that has a hot tub, as our listeners know of my love of the tub that is hot.
Yeah. So. All right. Our interview today is with Lori Brand. She's the author of a fascinating new novel that touches on many important issues. The book is called Bodies to Die For. We'll talk to her about this book and much more. But first, the news. News story number one. There's some new research, a report commissioned by HarperCollins that indicates that more than a quarter of the readers of YA young adult books are actually over the age of 28. Not only not young adults, not really even all that close. And the report attributes this to behavioral changes that they describe in terms like emerging adulthood or delaying adult life. So here's what, it's not really a news flash that there are some adults buying and reading young adult fiction. That was certainly true of the Twilight books. I think I read at one point more than 50% of those were selling to adults, to be read by them, not the daughter they claimed they were buying it for at the sales counter, but for themselves. And I think young adult is the genre, which indicates that the protagonist is going to be a teenager, but that doesn't mean that the reader has to be. So according to this study, more than a quarter of the readers are over the age of 28, even though the protagonists of the books are going to be like 17 or 18, something like that. The research was commissioned by publisher HarperCollins, as I said, in collaboration with Nielsen Book, who is a major book industry data provider, and it suggests that it didn't start yesterday. Get this, 74% of YA readers were adults, meaning over 21 or over, and then 28, maybe a third or so of that number, are over the age of 28. So 74% of the readers of these young adult books are not young adults themselves. The report says that this association may come because of, like I said, emerging adulthood, delaying adult life, feelings of instability, in-betweenness that causes people of that age to seek solace in young adult fiction. And the books become a source of comfort as they grow older, which is not the worst thing I've ever heard of. According to the report, the association between reading for pleasure and well-being is reflected in the growing popularity of young adult books, with readers of all ages, quote, increasingly turning to YA as a source of comfort, nostalgia, and self-care, end quote. Lara, does this surprise you?
I feel so seen right now. This, as a very young child, I discovered that if I wasn't feeling well, going off by myself and reading helped me. So that was the way that I self-soothed when I was a child. And this is something that I've carried with me. You know this. It maybe is even minorly irritating to you, but to this day, I still read myself to sleep. And that's something that I have been doing for as long as I can remember. And I think it stems from that. That was a way of calming myself, calming my mind, putting me to sleep. I think finding out that other people are turning to reading actually just, is it surprising? Probably not. That they're reading YA, it's probably a larger number than I would have guessed. I read a lot of YA when my kids were younger, when the kids were growing up.
Read them aloud, right?
I did tend to read them aloud. Twilight is an interesting example. You mentioned that. I was working in a library at the time, and tweens were asking for this book. And then the next thing I knew, daughters were asking for it as well. So I wanted to see what it was. And I did wind up reading them as well. Once they were independent readers by then. They would read those. And then I took them to read them to see what it was that they were reading. I think, and that was
books. I thought
yes, I read the Hunger Games books as well. That was decades ago, the Twilight, the decades ago. I find at this point in my life, I probably don't connect as well with the younger protagonist. And yet a good story is a good story is a good story. If it's a good story and it's written well and you can get into it, I just don't think that it matters. And reading is such a benefit to the readers in general. I've written papers about this. It's so critical that we encourage reading. And if YA is where people find comfort and joy, go for it.
Right. All right. News story number 2. And this has to do with the idea of you, something some of you may have seen in the theater, or you may have read the book before. Is it fan fiction? This is a hard topic for me to address, because I know for many years I was telling people at conferences and whatnot, don't write fan fiction. That can't help your career. You're not going to be able to sell it anywhere. I remember having lunch with this sweet guy who had written all these Indiana Jones novels and was shocked when Lucasfilm didn't want to print them. And, he was asking, what else can I do? Well, there's nothing else you can do unless you change enough that he doesn't really look like Indiana Jones anymore. But we know that Twilight was originally, it's backwards. 50 Shades of Grey was originally fan fiction based on Twilight. And Anna Todd did all those books that became movies after Ever After, Happily Ever After. Is that right? I think that's right. Our daughters have seen all of them. Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah.
But there are 3 now. Anyway.
Yeah.
So in the idea of you, the dreamy protagonist of this rom-com appears to be based on pop star Harry Styles, who was also apparently the basis for the After series by Anna Todd. But here he's called Hayes Campbell, which sounds absolutely nothing like Harry Styles. But he is in a boy band with a lot of ardent teen female fans, and they look a lot like One Direction, that was Harry Styles' band. And the guy is British, like Harry Styles, and he quits the band and starts making more soulful solo music like Harry Styles. And he likes to date older women, which is what sets up the plot of this movie, which, as I said, is basically a rom-com where he's dating a character played by Anne Hathaway, who is obviously significantly older than he is. So he's Harry Styles, or perhaps he's a Harry Styles type. I don't know. Lara, is this making you think you should stop writing serious novels and just do something with Harry Styles? Some fan
Yes.
fiction or something?
In a word, yes. Or at least maybe add that to my
Harry
my
Styles sees a
backlist.
ghost, maybe. Or
Something. It's obviously the path to success is Harry Styles and writing books with characters patterned after him, and that's where I've been going wrong. That's it.
or does it have to be Harry Styles? You think I could pull off a romance, a rom-com with a thinly disguised Taylor Swift? Because like that would sell.
I bet you could. Yes, that
So
would
in
be good.
this
You just
book,
have to be really big. Yeah.
Despite all her success, it turns out what she really wants is just a quiet country life where she reads poetry and plays with her cats. And
You could sell that to Hallmark right now.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh,
Who's
yeah.
she fall in love
Sure.
with?
For
Some guy
sure.
in a cardigan, but who is he?
Yeah, just make it Christmas time. Boom, Hallmark movie.
I think Jesse, will you write this with me? I think we've got a winner here.
Oh, for sure. You could also write some like Timothy Chalamet fan fiction, books. Like
That's a good idea.
Right?
Yeah.
We're onto something here.
Yeah.
Okay, Jesse.
Whole new genre.
Cue up the music. Let's talk to Lori Brand. Lori Brand, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much being here. All right, our traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be to write a crappy first draft. Just kick it out, get it done. Because it's very easy to like go over and over and over, each chapter, just sweat it out into, you get kind of muddled down in it into, you can lose that forward momentum.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Also having now my book coming out, I can tell you that there were some beautiful, beautiful passages that ended up on the cutting room floor. You kind of got to finish that whole manuscript to be able to look at it as a whole and then go back and see what serves the story and what is sort of extraneous. And that's why I don't think ever again I want to get bogged down in particular passages in case, they might be beautiful, but it might end up getting cut if it doesn't serve the purpose of the story. Yeah.
Excellent advice. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Tell us about your new book, Bodies to Die For.
All right. So the tagline is "The body image war is moving offline and fit girls are dying." So that's the tagline. I can just read the flap copy if you'd like. The flap copy is popular fitness influencer Gemma has transformed herself from a before into an after, complete with washboard abs, thriving business, and gorgeous husband. But social media can be deceiving. Offline, the cutthroat world of bikini bodybuilding just may eat her alive. That's if she's not first devoured by the secret nemesis that lurks beneath her polished surface, waiting to destroy her. Software engineer Ashley is fat and frustrated with failed diets, with a world that wants her to shrink, with biased doctors, online trolls, and even her own mother. Until Ashley falls in with a mysterious and radical sect of fat activists who are fighting back by any means necessary. She's never felt so alive, so full of purpose. She'll do whatever it takes to ride this high, destroy diet culture, and win the approval of her charismatic leader. Gemma and Ashley are on a collision course headed for the Olympia, the bodybuilding competition where futures are made and lost. But when Gemma's toughest rival turns up dead and more fitness girls fall like dominoes, it's beginning to look like the body image war has gone too far. With its breakneck pace and keen insights, Bodies to Die For takes a hard look at social media, the $70 billion diet industry, and the war on women's bodies, the wars we engage in with each other, the wars we wage on ourselves. So that's a fun copy.
Interesting.
Sounds great. Now, I
This-
remember the release date is soon. When's the release date?
June 11th.
Okay, so it's already out. People, you can order this book right now.
This book
Okay.
seems to have a lot to say about social media. You mentioned that quite a
Yeah.
few times already. So
Mhm.
what was the purpose of that? Intentional?
Very much. I wanted to show,
Yeah.
how the online world is a very curated world, and most people are presenting a very polished surface of themselves, a polished picture of
Mhm.
themselves, but it's hard to know what's going on offline, and
So
especially in
true.
that fitness world, right, where people are presenting, follow me, and you can look like I do, and
Mhm.
but you might not be aware that this person who looks really great online might like mentally be like in a really bad place, and
Mhm.
that's really what it is for Gemma, the woman who's got a fabulous body. Offline, she's tormented by fat Gemma, the secret nemesis that like lurks inside of her, because she used to be heavy and she lost a bunch of weight, and she's just terrified that fat Gemma is going to come roaring back and destroy her life. Her marriage is crumbling, despite that she posts pictures of herself and her husband online, and she makes everything look really good, but offline is not. And then also about how people can fall into following, the other character, Ashley, the one who's overweight. She falls in with a group of fat activists, and they start, tearing down diet culture, but it becomes kind of they kind of get whipped up a bit, and they end up sort of dragging down other people for their bodies, which is really what the opposite of what anybody should be doing. It's just how we're all judging each other on each
Mm.
other bodies, and nobody owes anybody else their body. Nobody should have to
Mhm.
answer for that.
Well, you have my attention here. I
Okay.
write women's fiction, so women's
Okay.
issues are always very important to me. But also,
Yeah.
when I was working on my master's degree,
Yeah.
anytime we had some leeway in what we were writing about, I found
Yeah.
a way to tie it to social constructs and sometimes body images. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, why did you take on the $70 billion diet industry and the war and this
The war on
stress
women's
that we have
bodies.
over our
Yeah.
women's bodies? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think before I get to the impetus that actually made me write this book, I'll just say that this has been on my radar since I was 10 years old.
Oh,
I've been
wow.
so I've been like on stage, like dancing or whatever, since before I can even remember. Like I don't even really remember the first time I put on a leotard and was like on stage. But when I was 10 years old, my dance teacher, in an effort to lose weight, had her jaw wired shut. And I will never forget it. My mom was driving me to dance, and she says, "Oh, by the way, Barb's not going to be teaching for the next few months. Jill, that's her assistant, right? Jill's going to be teaching. Barb will still be there. She'll be sitting off on the side with like a little notebook, but she won't be able to talk to you because her jaw's wired shut." I said, "Well, why is her jaw wired shut, right?" And my mom said, "Because Barb wants to lose some weight." And I was just like, "What? Like, how is that even, like, what's going on?" Right. And then my mom's pulling up to the curb and like dropping me off. And I'm like, but wait. And she's like, "Don't go in there asking questions because you're going to embarrass Barb." And so I go in there, and I think probably one of the most harmful things about this, and I was a slip of a girl, right? I was
Mhm.
skinny as could be.
Mhm.
And so were a lot of my friends, but all the other moms were dropping their daughters off too, and nobody was freaking out, right? This was just like another day. Like the fact that like nobody freaked out about this, I think was potentially one of the most harmful things, that it was accepted, right? How important is it to be thin?
It's
It's
a pretty
important enough
extreme
that
option.
a grown woman would have her jaw wired shut. And I watched over a number of months while she shrunk and she shrunk and she shrunk. And at one point, I was probably misbehaving. I don't know what, but she pointed at me and she kind of curled her finger. So I had to go over there, and because she wanted to say something to me in particular, I don't remember what. She had to talk to me with her jaw wired shut. But when she was
Mm.
done, I thought, well, I'm going to ask, because I'm the only, nobody's going to rat me out to my mom here. So I said, did you really have your jaw wires shut? And she nodded her head. And I said, can you show me the wires? And she hooked her finger in the side of her mouth and she pulled her lips back. And I could see these silver metal wires zigzagging up and down between like her upper and lower teeth. And they looked like fangs or like sharp teeth. And it just left a huge imprint on me. So that's kind of, I guess, how the stage was set. From that point on, I was probably really interested in how what women did to be thin. When I was in high school, one of my
What we
friends,
do to be beautiful.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, to hit those societal constructs, right? And all it is, it's to try to always be chasing what society tells you is the approved stamped image. I mean, it's very elusive, right? You can, it's everybody's got a different. I'm 54 right now, right? So I've lived through it all, and I mean, it changes over time. It changes between different groups of people. Between if you're constantly striving to hit somebody else's definition of beauty, you'll probably never be happy. And so my book at the end, the realization is that rather than trying to shrink to be small, and to try to hit that external metric, I guess, that instead, if you focus on getting strong, right, that's empowering, right? That you can eat to nourish your body. You can say, I want to do a push-up, and you can do it, right? You can work on it. You can do it. I want to walk a mile. I want to do this. I want to do that. Those are things that you can hit. It can make you mentally strong. And that the other thing at the end of my book is that just the realization that we as women need to quit tearing each other down, right? We need
Absolutely.
to. So often we say, society this, society that, but who is society, right? It's us. And we need to quit being our own worst enemies and being unkind to each other. So that's my
Great
book.
message. And you managed to get that in the book, which is
yeah.
even
Oh
better.
yeah.
I have to point out, your book describes itself, and the PR describes itself as a psychological thriller.
It is.
And of course, since I write thrillers too, I think, well, what makes one a psychological thriller? Are mine unpsychological thrillers, or what's the distinction in your mind?
So I think in psychological thrillers, there's like the mental anguish, like the fear. A lot of it's psychological. Gemma is the bodybuilder. She has not only the fear of fat Gemma, but as some of these fitness girls start to fall, she starts to become concerned that that she may be next, and that I don't want to say too much else, but she starts to also wonder if she's going crazy. Partly because of this nemesis that lurks inside of her, but she starts to even question her own sanity.
Man. On a different subject,
Okay.
in real life, I'm going to tell you something I think you already know, that you're a major athlete, right? You've written articles for fitness magazines, and you teach yoga and fitness classes.
Yeah.
How does that play into your writing?
Into the writing for the book, I think, or in writing for fitness magazines, or both.
Really, your novels. How does that work into the
novel?
fiction? Yeah.
So I think I have a pretty good grasp overall of the fitness industry. I've been in the fitness industry for a long time. I have seen, I've like when teaching like strength classes and things, I've seen women who are, say, let's just say somebody might be like, say, 55, 60 years old, 5'2" and 100 pounds. And they'll want to start taking a strength class, and they'll say to me, but I don't want to get too bulky. I don't want to get too big, right? And it's going to be everything that somebody can do at that age, right? To put on muscle, right? It's very hard. Putting on muscle is a glacial thing. It takes a lot of effort to put on muscle, but I will frequently see like a fear of getting too big, too bulky. I also see very much a focus on, or I should say very much, but sometimes, you see people who are uncomfortable or ashamed of their bodies and what they look like. Like I've had people come back to my class after the pandemic, if I hadn't seen them for a couple of years and like apologize for what they look like, which is like, like you just hate to see that, right? Nobody should have to apologize for what they look like. Being able to come to yoga to do things like this, it's a privilege. It's a wonderful thing to be able to move your body in a way that you take pleasure in, and you shouldn't have to be ashamed to come to yoga. You shouldn't have to be uncomfortable wearing maybe a pair of leggings or something like that because you're worried about people judging you. So I've seen that. I'm just sort of keenly aware of how women will view themselves, and sometimes sometimes it's somebody who's looking like very much like the part of what society expects. I also have a background in bodybuilding, right? Women's bodybuilding. And one of the things that really got me is I would be sometimes, like this would be like a day before a competition, like when you're all at the hotel or something, like the day before the competition, when everybody's looking really good, right? I mean, you're looking really, 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 really good. You've dieted down. You've got you've spent a long time, really perfecting what they call your package, right? What kind of a package are you going to bring to the stage? And I would see women with these phenomenal physiques look in the mirror and see nothing but flaws. Like see
Oh, yeah.
that they still feel that they're not shredded enough, or they're dissatisfied with like their shoulders or their glutes, or just and so it just made me realize how it affects everybody, right? Diet culture affects everybody. You can have a phenomenal body and it still affects you, or even if actually you acknowledge that, what, I think I do look good right now. It's still the fear, the fear of potentially gaining weight, and that that you have to do everything that you can to hang on to this body because you don't want to lose weight and have society frown upon you.
Right.
And it is true that society does judge people for it. So it's
Absolutely.
it's a real fear,
It
Yeah.
results in, body image is a big deal. Body dysmorphia is
Yeah.
a big problem.
Mhm.
Absolutely. We're all affected by that. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. It's in your bio.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I assume it's okay.
Oh, knock yourself out.
But
Yeah.
you mentioned that you were a Playboy model.
Yeah, I was in Playboy's Book of Lingerie. This is like decades ago, by the way. But
Yeah.
I want to add to it then, because this isn't in the bio. I was also a stripper when I was in college. And so I think
Even
that
better.
that's, yeah. So I think it's worth pointing out though, because once that you monetize that, right? Once that you monetize it, if you ever had any doubts about what you looked like, the mighty dollar is going to let you know. And when I worked as a stripper, and I look back on this and I'm shocked. I used to call out probably about once a month. I used to call out fat on Wednesdays. I'd call it fat. And like my managers, they're all really nice people actually. But in my station with Tracy, they'd be like, Tracy, I just saw you on Saturday, right? It's Wednesday. You didn't get fat in 4 days. And I would be
gosh.
no, I have. I'm not even making it up, right? Like I genuinely was terrified to come in, and it wasn't even like I'd been like binging. I was probably just like, PMSing or something, or maybe I had something salty.
You said once a month. I mean, that sounds like it was probably linked. And what can you do about that?
But I remember calling out like and being terrified to come in, and so I think, and so I'm able to look back on this now and be really, really surprised by it. Or when I saw the pictures, I'll never forget when I saw the pictures that ended up in Playboy's Book of Lingerie. I hated them, right? I thought they were just awful. I couldn't even believe that they published them. I was horrified that they published them. But I looked fine. But I mean, I look back on it and like all, how harshly I judged myself, and I'm really surprised by it. So it's not just overweight people who are judging themselves, right? I think we're all judging ourselves, and that's that's one of the reasons why I think I was kind of on the fence about putting that in the bio. And my agent, when we were going to take this book out on proposal, I was explaining to him why I wrote this book, right? He's like, I think you should keep that in, right? And so we kept it in because it is a talking point that
Yep.
you can hit that societal ideal and you can still be affected by this, you know? And so that's really why I wanted to explore. I wanted to hit it from every angle possible.
Well, you have a lot of life experience to draw from.
I
it sounds
do.
like. And I
I
think that's
do.
important. So you mentioned an
Yeah.
agent. Can you talk
Yeah.
some about your so you have all this life experience now.
Yeah.
You're ready to
Yeah.
put it into the book. What was your
Yeah.
path to publication like? How did you get started?
Okay, so I actually, this is my second book, right? I wrote an entire other book about 10 years before this one about something completely different. And I finished that whole book. I queried it. I got several, or not several. I maybe had like, I don't know, like maybe 8 or something requests for fulls, maybe 7, or maybe some partials, some fulls. But I remember I started getting feedback back on that first one, and I realized that it was going to need a rewrite. I started to realize, you know, I had some heavy lifting to do, and I just didn't really feel like it. You know, I like, it's like I kind of like worked through it. Like that book was like a book I had to, I think, write for me. There's like something I had to work through. I had to just do it. And right about that time, I'd gone back to, you know, I had raised my kids. I'd gone back to school and gotten a master's, and I got a job as an engineer. And so I was getting really busy. So I kind of set writing aside, and I just kind of, you know, set it aside for a number of years. And then in 2020, there was something in the news. We could talk about it later if you want to, but there was something in the news that just really grabbed me. It really intrigued me. I had actually been starting to write another book. I was about 20,000 words into the other book when this book hit me. And so I wrote this book. I wrote the whole thing, but this time I was smart, right? This time I finished the whole book and I set it aside and I thought about it for a while. Or I set it aside, then I took it back. I rewrote the book, and then I gave it to some beta readers, and this was really helpful. And so I gave it to 3 beta readers. I got their feedback. I cleaned the whole thing up, and then I made it as tight as I could possibly make it on my own. I did the very best I could on my own. This time I did the best I could, which I don't think I did that on the first one. And then I queried, and it took and I only queried women because I thought only a woman's going to appreciate the story. But then at some point, there was an agent that I really admired, Shane Salerno, who's a guy. And I thought, well, you know what? Even though I didn't think a guy would be interested, I thought, you know, I'm gonna query him, right? Just you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I queried Shane, and then he got back to me like that very same day, and he said, you know, he's not taking new clients, but he recommended a newer agent who he thought highly of, and that was Jackson Keeler. And so he CC'd Jackson on the email, and then Jackson and I exchanged some information, and he signed me, and then he and I rewrote the book like a million times, like over and over and over again. And I was still, even though I had made it as good as I could on my own, there was a lot I didn't know that he was able to really help me. He's a very developmental agent. Like I didn't realize that there was like a 3 act story structure. I had hit most of the beats anyway, because I read so many thrillers, but but we cleaned the whole thing up, and then he took it out. We mostly started only, he sent it to one guy who was an editor, and the others were women, because again, we thought this would mostly appeal to women. It was a man who was an editor who this hit for. And so Daniel Ehrenhaft with Blackstone. And Blackstone loved it. It turns out somebody on their marketing team is a bodybuilder. And she loved the book, man. She was like, this is so true. And so Blackstone bought it. And then it took almost 2 years, right, from when they bought it to when it's going to be launched here on June 11th, which is it just shows how long it takes, traditional publishing takes, you know.
Right.
But then once that they bought it, right, what did we do?
Yeah,
we rewrote it a million times with their editor, you know. So
but
so
it's
just
almost going to
rewrite.
happen, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
this book is gonna be well received, and you're
I
gonna be
hope
very
so.
pleased.
I
So
hope
that
so.
leads me to ask, what
Yeah.
next?
So I'm working on a new book. It's actually close to complete. My agent and I are going back and forth in rewrites with it now, but the whole thing is, the overall manuscript is done, but we're tightening some things out and straightening a few pieces. It's a book about an advice columnist and about an OnlyFans creator. We're going to tap into the topic of sex work, because I'm really interested in that space where people are, where people are telling you what you can and you can't do with your body, and so we're gonna tap into that and see how that goes over. Yeah, that's what we're doing next.
Fascinating. Nice.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really
Yeah.
enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Just a few parting words. You probably knew I was going to remind you that you can order my brand new novel now called Justice for All. It's the 8th book in the Daniel Pike series. And of course, this time Dan is not teaming up with. It's more like he's in a cage match with or against the lead character from my Splitsville series, Kinsey Rivera. So we've got this knockdown, drag out courtroom battle, shared universe. I never get tired of saying that. The Bernhardt shared universe, like nothing you've ever seen before, because I've never written anything before. This was a lot of fun to write, and I hope you'll enjoy it too. Justice for All. And don't forget about the WriterCon Retreat. There is still
I'm counting
time
the
to
days.
register. Come join
But I'm
us, of
counting the
course.
days. Yes, please.
Group and one-on-one feedback on your book is a great environment and a great time. I hope you can join us. For more information, go to writercon.com. All right. Until next time, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. Okay, see you next time.